Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your opening statement, your concerns about Ukraine and the budget issues. Mr. Secretary, in your opening statement, you spoke to the issue of cutting waste and abuse at the Pentagon. I assume you intend to do that. Is that correct? Yes? No?
We have done that, sir.
All right. And therefore, it must be your responsibility. I want to bring to your attention a statement that the President made in early February. He said there is no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons. And they're building new nuclear weapons. We're all spending a lot of money that we could spend on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive. So I'd like to focus for a few moments on one of the most expensive programs at the Department of Defense, the Sentinel ICBM, which is to replace the Minuteman III. The cost of this program has exploded from $78 billion to over $141 billion, not including a new nuclear bomb for the Sentinel and the command and control systems, which would add somewhere $20 to $40 billion. All the while, we have a Minuteman III that can continue to provide the ground leg of the triad for at least 10 to 15 more years. Should we cut the Sentinel program?
The U.S. is facing a wide range of domestic and international challenges that demand significant financial resources, everything from healthcare and education to infrastructure and global diplomacy. In such a critical moment, allocating hundreds of billions to a single weapon system, especially one that duplicates capabilities we already possess in abundance, seems questionable to many. Even the President has acknowledged this concern in a past statement, saying, "There is no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over." That quote alone speaks volumes. If we already have enough nuclear firepower to annihilate the planet several times, then why are we doubling down on even more destructive potential? This is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about national priorities, strategic logic, and ethical responsibility. The massive budget increase in the Sentinel program doesn't just reflect the usual inflation or technical delays. It points to a fundamental disconnect between fiscal oversight and military ambition. There's an ongoing review process meant to evaluate whether the Sentinel program is truly necessary or cost-effective, and yet investments are continuing while that review remains incomplete. Critics argue this undermines the review's purpose and shows that decisions are being made based on momentum and politics rather than clear-eyed strategic analysis.
While President Trump is correct to point out that proliferation is very dangerous, but he has also, in his budget, ensured we fully fund the nuclear triad, every aspect of it, in a historic way. The Sentinel, as one leg of it, and that modernization is critically important. As you know, it faces a Nunn-McCurdy breach for being behind, and as a result, it has to be reviewed, but it's incredibly important. And so our budget does look at ensuring to...
Excuse me, sir. So you have made a decision to continue even though the review is incomplete?
The review is ongoing. The investments we've made allow us to continue should the review come out the way we hope it does.
You continue the Sentinel program even though the Nunn-McCurdy review is incomplete. I'd like now to move over to Ukraine. The chairman of this committee spoke very strongly about the Ukraine situation and the necessity of the United States being strong in support of Ukraine. It's very, very clear that a review of what Mr. Putin has said over the last 2 decades.
That kind of preemptive investment weakens public trust and undermines the credibility of the review process. It also puts Congress in a difficult position. Lawmakers are being asked to approve billions more for a project that hasn't yet received a final strategic or budgetary endorsement from its own oversight bodies. Critics argue that this undermines the very principles of democratic governance. Taxpayers expect their money to be spent wisely, based on evidence, research, and careful consideration, not because a program has gained political momentum or because defense contractors are lobbying behind the scenes. The fact that the Sentinel program is still being funded while under review raises red flags. Are decisions being driven by national security needs or by bureaucratic inertia and defense industry influence? Furthermore, rushing ahead with funding and development could have lasting consequences. Once billions are invested, it becomes significantly harder to cancel or scale back the project, even if the review ultimately recommends doing so. This phenomenon is often referred to as the sunk cost fallacy, where decision makers continue a project simply because they've already invested so much in it, even when evidence suggests it may no longer be necessary or viable. In the case of Sentinel, this could mean committing the country to decades of maintenance, upgrades, and additional funding for a program that may not offer meaningful improvements over the existing Minuteman Roman III system. There's also a broader strategic concern. Proceeding with the Sentinel program without waiting for the review's conclusion sends a message to other countries and international observers. It implies that the U.S. is willing to unilaterally modernize and expand its nuclear arsenal without fully considering the implications. That could escalate tensions with other nuclear powers and reduce global willingness to cooperate on arms control agreements. It could even prompt adversaries to accelerate their own weapons programs, triggering a new arms race, one fueled not by necessity, but by uncertainty and distrust.
That he is determined to reestablish the Soviet Empire, and Ukraine is the current step to achieve that. Ukraine's security is our security, my view, and what is dangerous for Ukraine will be dangerous for NATO and therefore dangerous to the United States. Yesterday, 2 days ago, in response to Senator McConnell, who asked, which side of the Ukraine conflict do you want to win? And you said, the president is committed to peace in that conflict. Ultimately, peace serves our national interest, and we think it serves the interest of both parties, even though that outcome will not be preferable to many in this room, at that time, the Senate, and I would also say this room too, preferable to many in this room and many in our countries. Mr. Secretary, when you said that peace serves our national interest, does that peace come from a complete surrender of Ukraine and total victory for Russia?
If the United States allows Ukraine to fall, it sends a dangerous message to other adversaries around the world, suggesting that the West will not defend its allies or stand by its principles. For over 2 decades, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed ambitions to re-establish what he sees as the rightful boundaries of the former Soviet Empire. Ukraine is one of the most strategically significant pieces of that puzzle. Its location, resources, and democratic ambitions make it both a symbolic and practical target for Russian expansion. If Russia succeeds in fully subjugating Ukraine, it would not only expand its influence dramatically, but also demonstrate to neighboring countries, including NATO members, that resistance might be futile. That would undermine NATO's deterrent power and embolden Russia to test other borders, perhaps even those protected under the NATO alliance. The congressman's statement, "Ukraine's security is our security," encapsulates this fear. NATO was founded on the principle of collective defense. If one member is attacked, all respond. While Ukraine is not a NATO member, the threat to its sovereignty still resonates deeply within NATO territory. The idea is that allowing Russia to dominate Ukraine without consequences could inspire future military aggression against countries that are NATO members, such as the Baltic states or Poland. This would force NATO into a direct military confrontation with Russia, something far more dangerous than the current situation. Moreover, the billions of dollars that the United States has invested in Ukraine are not just financial aid. They are a statement of political commitment. Walking away now would not only represent a loss of those resources, but also damage U.S. credibility with its allies and partners.
We think peace is in the best interest, but I would point out, Ukraine is not the U.S. and Ukraine is not in NATO. And to draw that comparison is to draw one that is not correct. But we hope for peace. We believe peace is in the best interest of the United States of America, and our policies are pointing toward that.
Well, let me go back to what I asked you. Is that peace Could the achievement of that peace through the complete surrender of Ukraine and the withdrawal of U.S. support for Ukraine, is that a worthy peace, and is that peace in the long-term and actually the short-term interest of the United States?
If you look at the billions of dollars that have been invested in Ukraine, you could hardly characterize that as a surrender from the United States. So the existing military front line of troops is as difficult as it is, moving slowly. Where peace ends at the end of that, nobody really knows. But the president has worked harder than anybody else to try to get a peaceful outcome.
Gentleman's time's expired, Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Whitman.